fire up the stream. Let's go tell everybody in the Discord. Firing up the stream. And okay, so yeah, we're we're fired up. The hell is out of the way? Okay. I've had a thoroughly unproductive day. So anyway, today what we're working on is we're working on connecting the arms to the body. And I have been just like playing Fallout 4 all day, so I'm still trying to kind of get into the swing of things. I also haven't eaten a whole lot today. Let's jack that down a little bit. So what we're looking at here is, you know the drill. 2 anime titties across. There we go. 1 anime titty down. 2 anime titty down. And there is the crotch. And here is the undercurve of the rib cage. And here is, on a feminine figure, the outline of the rib cage. So that we have here these shoulders. Now I'm going to kind of drop down to the composition layer. One of the things that I want to talk about today, the most important thing, is the concept of phase sequencing. Now we've talked a little bit about, we've talked extensively about, here's the manubrium, and here are the clavicles right here, and here are the shoulder blades right here. So here is where your arm is connecting right here. Now, when your arm is just hanging down at your side, your elbow comes down to just below your rib cage. So, on both sides, this is roughly where your elbow is. Okay? There's the important thing, and here's where we're going to get into the blue color and whatnot. Your shoulder up here. Let me drop the sketch down to semi-transparent. Now, here you got your shoulder, right? Actually, let's just drag the sketch. Let's keep the sketch at 100%. We'll just drag it down below the composition layer. Now, here's your shoulder. Here's your elbow. Helps if you use the right layer. Here's your elbow. And here's the mind-blowing thing that nobody ever tells you straight out loud. Your shoulder and your elbow are always exactly the same distance from each other, because when you look at this bone right here, the humerus, the bone of your upper arm, there's no joints in it. It doesn't bend, okay? There's no way for it to bend. There's no way for it to fold. There's no way for it to flip around or twist or like tie itself in knots or anything like that. So your elbow and your shoulder are always the exact same distance apart, which means if you raise your arm to the side over here, it forms this arc. If you raise your arm all the way up over your head, okay, it still forms this arc. Now you can push upward, you can push up with the clavicle, but again, the clavicle doesn't have a joint in it. The clavicle is going to lever upward this way, so you've got that same arc duplicated up here, and there's your shoulder, there's your elbow. They're always the same distance apart. They never get any farther apart, they never get any closer together. And as you might figure, hey, guess what else is the same length all the time? Your forearm. Always the same length. Once you identify where your elbow is, your forearm, you know how long your forearm is. Always the same distance. It's always the same distance away, no matter what you do, okay? So when you're thinking of it this way, and you go, okay, I'm going to have the elbow is going to be lifted up away from the body. And in order to do that, you've got to put the elbow out here. You go, okay, I want the elbow out here, but I also want the elbow to be reaching forward. Well, here's your head, and here's your chest, here's your shoulders. You've got your elbow reaching outward from the body like this, okay? And now you're going to move it forward. It's got to stay the exact same distance from the shoulder. So when you move it forward, you're just projecting it forward. So you can imagine from here a perspective ellipse, okay? You can imagine that this circle around the shoulder is just being projected here. So you've still got that same ellipse. It's just projected in perspective. So to push that forward, you push it forward along the ellipse, okay? Which makes it shorter, but all of your stuff is still in the same position. And when you're thinking of it this way, this is why you always think about things in volumes. It's why you always consider them from the standpoint of you are representing a 3D volume in space. A lot of people, this is why teachers just get like up in arms about people drawing anime, because if you are drawing the exact lines that you see on an anime figure, and you don't think that these represent volumes, that represents a shoulder. There's a bicep. There's a tricep back here. There's a bone in between them. There's the elbow. It's got a radius and an ulna that are connected to the elbow underneath of it. You have a body of muscle on the outside. You have a body of muscle on the inside that runs into the thumb. You have a body of muscle on the other side that runs down to the pinky. You have all of the different elements and all the different pieces. If you're not thinking about those as three-dimensional volumes of a physical object, and you're just thinking of them as lines, then you can't extend that into something where you're actually drawing it in a different position. And that's really what art teachers are after. Art teachers are after the idea of you can draw anything in any position. That's one of the things that... It's one of the things I'm not focusing on right now, because there are three fundamental shapes that you can use to draw anything. And these are the ball, which is perfectly round in every respect. The box and the barrel. If you can draw a ball, a box, and a barrel, you can draw anything, because everything is just variations of the ball, the box, and the barrel. If you've got an egg is just a ball that is narrow on one end and wide on the other. It's the same thing with a pyramid. A pyramid is just a box that is tapered up to a point on one side. You can taper on either side. The same thing with a cone is just a barrel that's tapered to a point on one end. That's the only thing that you're looking at there. And if you're working for the concept of the ball, the box, and the barrel, you can indeed draw or paint anything from those three shapes. All you have to do is understand perspective and understand light and shadow, and it's like dropping all the way down to first principles. But dropping all the way down to those first principles will get you to the point of drawing a thing that you see. It won't necessarily get you drawing the human body in motion. And I'm concentrating very much on the human body in motion and not on just being able to draw anything. Being able to draw a car is just a matter of decomposing the shape. You figure out, like, where would the edges of the boxes be? What parts of this are square? What parts of this are round? Where are the corners? Where is the light hitting it? And there are all of these principles you can use to figure that out. Those principles don't always apply clearly to drawing the human body. And what I'm trying to draw, of course, is I'm trying to draw the character graphics for a video game. And those involve understanding the way that the human body is constructed, primarily from the waist up, or at the very least from mid-thigh up. There's some room in there for me to have like some legs, but they're not that important. They're barely there, and you don't really see any of the real definition in them. Only right here at the hip. That's pretty much the only place that you would see that, is right in there. But as you project the arm upward to where the elbow needs to be, you can project it upward to the side, and then you can project it forward along a separate arc. And then having done that, you know that the forearm is going to be about the same length as the upper arm. It's a little bit shorter to make room for some of the palm. And now you know where your hand is. In fact, you can pretty much always fake where the arm is from where the hand is. If you know where the hand is, you know where your shoulder is, and you know the arm between the hand and the shoulder is, number one, always exactly the same length, and number two, bends in exactly one place. So if you know that, if you know where the hand is, and you know where the shoulder is, you know where the arm has to be, because there's only one place it can be. There's not a whole lot of variation. Once you have your hand in a particular place and your shoulder in a particular place, I mean, you can move the elbow, but not very much before it starts to look twisted and weird and awkward. You've only got a little bit of range of motion. And that little bit of range of motion is the only way that you can have your hand where it is and facing the direction it is and having the palm facing a particular direction. The palm is always on the same side as the inside of the arm. You can't point the inside of your arm one way and the palm of your hand another way. You just can't do that. They are locked together. This bone along the inside always connects to the thumb. This bone along the outside always connects to the little finger. And because of that, because they're always connected to the same sides of the elbow, you just have that twist in the forearm. That's the only part of it you've got. God, this sketch is messy. But again, you project your elbow upward, you project your elbow forward in space, you have the perspective ellipse for where it is. It has to lie along that ellipse. And now all you're doing is you're taking what is fundamentally, remember we talked about the box, the ball, and the barrel. Here's the barrel of the arm here. And that barrel now needs to rotate around so that it's facing this direction. So you've got a little bit of a change in the size of that cylinder. It's a little bit narrower. And the sides of that kind of narrow in as they come out. And as you detail this, as you make it more clear that there's a deltoid here, and there's a bicep here, and there's a tricep here, and that tricep kind of pokes out there, divots in there, and that's pretty much all you've got on the arm. And because we're going to have the hand over here, that forearm is going to come in this direction. And as that forearm comes in this direction, we know that the bicep is there. And we know that as the arm bends, the bicep has to contract and the tricep has to relax because of that agonist and antagonist way that things fit together. So we know as we do that, that here's your shoulder, and you're going to have the shoulder muscle is going to come in front of the tricep. The tricep is relaxed, and it's going to come forward, and here we're going to have the elbow. And the elbow is going to interlace to the forearm, and the forearm's going to come across like this. Now, because of the way that we're twisting the forearm to get the hand, because we want the hand kind of on its side, and we're looking at the little finger level, from the arm, on the inner side of the elbow, this is the part that connects to the pinky. That's not going to move much, but this bone here is going to be flopping over the side of it, okay? So that's going to be coming in and twisting around. It's going to be moving backward. And what we've got here is we've got this body of muscles here, and that's going to come up, and then we've got that little crisscross shape of muscle up here. No, I do not want to change my, color. So there's that crisscross of muscle there, and that is probably going to give us just a little definition line in there. We're going to get a little definition line in there, and we're going to get just a bit of a crease. This is not a great picture by any stretch of the imagination. Then here's the bicep, which is bulging out. And we're going to get a little bit of definition in there. And we're going to have the edge of the shoulder muscle there, kind of kicking in. And since this is pulling over, we're going to have a bit of tension in the pectoral muscle right here. And there's going to be our hand. So let's pull this preliminary out of there. And let's actually let's hide that red bit there. What I'm trying to get at here is I'm really working through the whole thing and thinking about where everything fits. So here is the side of the palm. Our wrist is right here. There's the side of the palm as it comes forward. And this would be our finger kind of coming down and crooking over. And remember that you need to do both the side and the top of that. And you should really kind of exaggerate this as you do it. That here's the knuckle of that little finger. Here's the knuckle of the ring finger. And the ring finger is going to come out. And you want to really kind of exaggerate the notion of there's this change in direction here, where the finger goes from being pointed forward to pointed to the side. There tends to be a shadow in there. This is not the greatest picture. But you want to sort of exaggerate that idea. You want to get the kind of relative lengths of the fingers. And what we've got here is I'm just kind of sketching this out. And again, what we've got here is the thumb would be back here. It would be hanging down about there, but it would be back behind all of these fingers. So you wouldn't really see it. Now, what I want to do with this is I want to kind of, I want to jump into this and try to improve it. Let's do that. All I'm trying to do here is I'm going to jump onto my line art bit. The black line, and I want to be reasonably detailed here. And this is where my shoulder comes in. We're in that out as it comes in. There's the edge of the flattened out tricep. That should really come in right around here. And that should actually be almost unnoticeable. You would just have a nice kind of flat level right there. Maybe a bit in there. Go the edge of it. But here, we're going to have a bit more definition on the bicep. And we're going to have even more of it right there. Now, because the forearm is coming in front of that, we're going to have a bit of shadowing. And I want to kind of identify that plane change there. Here's the other edge of the deltoid, and there's that bit of the pectoral muscle. Now right in here, the armpit, I want to kind of come out there, that. And then this, I want to sort of get a bit there and a bit there. We really want to emphasize the interlacing of the elbow to the joint. Sweep that up and around. I'm going to exaggerate that slightly. I think this needs to be thinner. Right. That's going to come around. So we'll do a little bit of a crossover. Bit of twisting going on there. Bit of a crease there. That's not how that would look. That would that'd be coming off the bottom of the bone there. It would sweep upward like this. And there would be kind of a contour situation going on here. Yeah, that's an improvement. That foreshadowing there. Now from here, make sure we get. I think I drew this whole thing a little bit too big. Let's correct that somewhat. That's going to come up and around, and we're going to have knuckle, 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 and side of the hand right there. Now, when you bend your fingers, each joint kind of goes underneath the next. So when you have like a finger that bends, this bit here goes underneath that bit, and that bit goes underneath the next bit. That's the way they fold together as you kind of curve them, and you got the little kind of wrinkles on the back of your finger that open up slightly as you do that. Okay, so those stretch out as you do that, and they become just like little lines. And then you've got, of course, your fingernail right there. But those kind of telescope into one another, and you can see that as you bend it. And the more meat you have on your fingers, the more they slide into one another. The more they do that. So pull that off of there. I'm really trying to kind of refine this. I'm using oh, what's her name? The prickly alpaca's method of improving the image as it moves forward. So I'm using that kind of workflow, but I've never done that before, so I don't know if I'm doing a good job. I'm going to kind of exaggerate the box shape here of the finger so you can sort of see that there's a top to the finger there, and then there's a side to the finger. That's the primary thing you're looking at. I don't know if this is particularly a realistic pose. I mean, that's like, I guess that's a thing somebody would do, like right there like that is kind of the direction that I'm thinking. This arm is much too beefy for that forearm. That needs to be toned down. Easy way to do that is to pull this in. I have a bad habit of trying to make upper arms and upper bodies too beefy. That would instead come right here. And that would still bulge out, but not anywhere near as much as I had it. And that come in like so, and then see the back of the, and we'd see that bit right there of the brachialis, and we would also see this muscle coming out here out of the, there would be kind of the isthmus dorsi. I need to pay more attention to how this particular area of the body is formed. I don't think I've done a good job on that, but for the hand, some of the tendons, a bit more reasonable. Now, if we were to move this, now again, we've got this arm doesn't look right. I'm not sure how to fix it. That's better. Better at all. And these would come in right there, I guess. That would kind of does it. It's not bad. And it still does look kind of funky. Let's look at what are the distances here. Hold on. I should do that on a different layer. So if we go from the wrist here to the elbow here, and then from the elbow here to the, this doesn't adequately show that the arm is coming forward. The arm's not sufficiently foreshortened. It looks like the arm's coming straight to the side and then the forearm's coming straight to the side back. And it's like, if you looked at this from the side, it kind of looks like what you have is this kind of stick that's holding the two of them together. Like behind this, there is something that's holding the forearm on. I haven't effectively foreshortened the upper arm. That's what's wrong here. So, how do I do that? That's always the problem, isn't it? I mean, what do you do to fix the thing? That's very much the issue that I run into over and over again is I know that I fucked something up, but I do not know what I need to do to fix it. Hey Zeb, how's it going? So I have fucked this up, clearly. The question is, how do I fix this? How do I fix this? What would this look like from a side view? From a side view, we would be looking at more or less this. The hand would be coming up in front of the chest here. But this would be coming up this way. So if this is coming up this way, then I haven't dramatically sharpened. In order to achieve a forward motion in space, you need to overlap the round portions of the anatomy. Let's draw this out bit by bit and see. Here's the bicep, and back here we've got the humerus is down inside of that. There's a tricep muscle here, which is anchored and comes down. The tricep muscle here, which is anchored and comes down. So that is more the shape that we're looking at. And if that's more the shape that we're looking at, then And we've got more of this going on. Let's tone that down. We'll use some barreled strokes there to give form to the this particular area, and pull that up there. Hey, the bum made it. The bum made it in. He gets to watch me act like a complete fucking fool and do everything wrong. Let's trim that down. Let's see, lighter stroke. That's difficult for me, lightening my strokes when I work digitally. That's a very difficult thing for me to do. Okay, so this is the wrong angle. This angle needs to be farther in, like this. This whole bit needs to come in farther, like so. Most of that armpit is going to be concealed. I mean, we got the spirit on this, but we're a little confused about how this looks from the front. Well, I'm a little confused about it. And then that's going to be more shadowed. So it did need to be beefier, but it needed to be beefier in a different direction, which means this needs to come farther forward this way. That is going to be more the direction right in there, and pull that out. Now I am, as mentioned, making a deliberate effort to try and do a better job of actually refining and improving my work, because that's what I suck at. Now you'll notice, if you're looking at the chat replay, I don't even know if I have chat replays enabled for this. I don't even know if I have chat replays enabled for these streams, but if I do, and you're looking at them, you are probably noticing that nobody's telling me I fucked shit up. I'm just going, wow, I fucked that up. It's like, having the audience does tend to keep you honest, you know? I don't know how to shade that. Should probably just leave it alone and not fuck with it. In fact, that is exactly what I'm going to do. Yeah. Okay, and this is too complex. Let's pull that out now. The axilla itself, that does belong there, but I think that's all we need right there. Pull that right there, and that's not awful. Yeah, it is very, very important to lighten your strokes. I have this tendency when I draw digitally that I just go, I just jump right in there, and I'm very bold and very strong, and I'm just kind of stab in and go right for it. And the tough part is, one of the things that I'm trying to do with this, if you look down here, I've got the taper set very high over here, and I really do have I have it set so it'll trail off, so it'll trail in and trail off. but I need to develop that feel, and that's something that I have not quite done yet. And when I use a larger brush size, it's more apparent that I'm trying, you know? But at these smaller brush sizes, which is where I need to get to more and more often. How does this look when I pull that? That's not terrible. It's way too masculine. It's got too much muscular definition and whatnot. Yeah, and yeah, the thinner upper arm definitely makes more sense. Everything was like thoroughly fucked up, and I think this does end up being a kind of better layout. Let's pull that off of there first of all. And then let's jump in here with no, not the magic wand. Let's go to the lasso, and we'll pull this, and we'll go copy and paste. And having gone copy and paste, I'm now going to click over to move layer. We're on a new layer, and I'm going to grab that, drag it over, pull this over, drag it a bit more, and let's do a bit more fixing on this. First things first, let's feminize this a bit more. Let's make this look more like a woman's arm and less like a man's. So I'll begin by setting a color on this. And we'll make it, a light blue again. There we go. So we'll put a color on that, and that's way too light. There, how's that? That's way too dark. I suck at this. My color sense is awful. Anyway, okay, we got something like that. So let's then jump in. We'll make a new layer on top of that, and we'll jump down to black again. And from here, we'll remove the... And let's start by saying, how do we make an arm look feminine instead of masculine? Well, number one, women tend to be smaller. They tend to have less muscle mass, but they also tend to have a thin layer of fat underneath the skin that men don't have. So we want to jack this in a little bit. And let's go back to our brush. So we want to jack this in a little bit, but we also want to smooth it. So this area right here, number one, that is still way too large a line. We're going to bring this in here, and we want to kind of smooth that, and we want to smooth that, and then as we come down here, the elbow, a woman's elbow, tends to come to more of a point, which happens right here, and that kind of slopes more, doesn't bulge out as much, and it still comes in. But there we go. That's a bit more like a woman's arm would look as opposed to a man's arm. And here in particular, a woman's breast emerges from under the armpit, funnily enough. A lot of guys don't realize that. There's an angular area. If you look at a dissected cadaver, okay, the breast is just sitting on top of the pectoral muscle, but it's kind of flopped over. It comes from under here. There's this angular bit that reaches up underneath of the armpit. And that bit of the armpit, if you let the breast fall away from the armpit, it would flop over and the nipple would face backwards. It's attached to the back here. It kind of wraps around. So you've got kind of the breast is on the pectoral muscle, but it wraps around the back of it to connect into the armpit. So the breast would come in here. And that would give you a slightly different feel to that, because you would get that particular peculiar formation that you see on women in anime. And this would be slimmer, it would be softer, it would come down more like that. Let's clean that line up somewhat. So this should immediately look more feminine. That should come in more like so. So this should read as a more feminine arm than what I had. I know where my breasts are, so I'm going to pass on the cadaver. Yeah. Well, you have a benefit most guys don't. We can't just check where they are. It's a little bit different for us. So there we go. And okay, now that that's cleared up somewhat, then we're still going to have, going to come across like so, and here is the here's the forefinger. Women typically have longer nails, but these nails are almost edge on though. So we've got kind of, there's one finger and there's the next finger. There's the nail. We're looking primarily at the side. Here's the ring finger. The ring finger and the little finger tend to work almost as a unit. But the little finger is much smaller. But they do tend to go together and whatnot. We're going to have something kind of like this. And that's going to give us the side of the palm right there. The edge of the arm is going to come into that, and we're going to kind of pull that over to the side there. Let's do the old artist trick. How does this look when we flip it? Why is it insistently oh, it's moving it up. That definitely reads as masculine and feminine, and they don't look awful when I flip them. They don't look incredibly off when I flip them horizontally, which is good. But I am seeing a number of issues here. One of them is the change in perspective. The change in perspective here is this should really be, this is one of the problems that a lot of people have with perspective. I am not alone on this. But things get closer together in perspective. They seem much too close together a lot of the time. I'm making that ring finger much too long. It needs to bend up here for the middle finger, because duh. And then it would bend right about there. There's the, and then here. That up a little You can erase so much more effectively on digital art. You really can. So this would actually come farther up, too. This here would be a little finger, which is going to bend right there, and that's bend right here, and that's about where it ends up being. That flips around, and that flips around, so that comes off of there. Okay, that is a significantly better situation. This should be slender. Much more of a hot dog finger effect than I wanted. It's Little Miss Wiener Finger! Yeah, I'm not drawing Miss Wiener Finger, so let's back up off of that shit. And I've got a bit of an unnatural bend in this. Let's take that farther down like so. There, that's more reasonable. That should be a little bit slender there. Clean that up. This is better. It's still got issues. This is too long. Another common problem people run into. Okay, how does that come out looking? Okay, if I put back out, put back and forth. That's better, but it's still, you know, they're both shitty hands, but they're both shitty in about the same ways. So it's. I do feel like I've improved this one, which is good. But I am zoomed in way too far on this. Now, what we want to do is we want to think about how this interlaces with the rest of form. So that's going to interlace right in there. She's going to be reaching about to the middle of her chest, so it would be the edge of her breast there. That would be coming down around here, so that's about the edge of the rib cage right here, which means that's about the line of. Let's have a little bit more confidence on this line stroke. Let's just widen it up a little bit, and we'll just slap that in there. That is a bit more of, and we'd be able to see a bit of the curve here as well. Now, that's about where the rib cage comes in. Here's where the waist comes in. Women are typically not as defined as men. We'll turn the head this direction. So she's kind of looking this way. Looking away from where her hand is pointing. And again, if you want a figure to look masculine, attach the traps higher up on the neck, and if you want it to look feminine, then attach them lower down. This is better than the work I typically do, that's for sure. It is, however, still not very good. It's better than my usual crap. This is better crap. It's higher quality crap. It always takes longer than I think it should take. We are getting somewhere on this. Now, doodle or make very detached strokes to get in the grooves. That's a very good point. Typically, when I start a stream, I have been sketching for a couple of hours before that, so I'm kind of like warmed up and feeling like, you know, I'm ready to get into this. But I was literally like fucking around in my Fallout 4 settlements until right when I started the stream. So I kind of came into this cold. And it is good to see improvement. I'm really happy with this. I'm really happy at seeing some level of improvement. There's still problems. There's a problem here, and there's a problem here, and there's problems here. I think there's a larger problem here than I can articulate. The jawline. I'm making this jawline too angular. There's a lot of stuff that's not exactly on point here. I am like actually, I'm seeing movement in a direction that I want to go though, and that's really good. I mean, from my perspective, it kind of leads me to think that because mostly what I'm doing in my videos and in my streams is just like saying, hey, here's the shit that I'm learning as I go through and try to get better. If I actually get better, then that means people who watch my videos and watch my streams and stuff, if they think along the same lines and go the same direction, maybe they'll get better too. And that's really what I worry about. I worry about whether the stuff that I tell people to do is just complete bullshit and it will make them worse artists. It's like, every once in a while, I'll do something I'll feel like, didn't I used to do a better job at this? Didn't I used to be better than this? I think I was. Let me look at, yeah, here's this thing I did when I was younger, and I was much better at this. What the fuck happened? But, yeah, it really does, it feels like I'm finally actually starting to see some meaningful improvement in the work that I do. And getting that meaningful improvement is really important because, you know, I have this end goal that I'm working toward. I have this thing that I'm trying to do, which is to build the character graphics for my game so that I can get the game finished and I can get the game out there. And I have all of this stuff that I'm working on, and I'm thinking in like 4 different directions. But the whole thing about doing the videos and putting this stuff out there and saying, here's the stuff that I'm learning, and here's how I'm applying it, and here are the results that I'm getting. That is mostly me making myself do the shit that I know I ought to be doing. It's like if I didn't have to do this stream tonight, I would have probably just kept playing Fallout 4 until like the wee hours of the morning, and I wouldn't have bothered to sketch at all. But this commitment of at 11 o'clock Saturday night every week, I will stop what I'm doing and I will sketch a particular thing that I know I'm going to sketch for an hour. And knowing that I'm going to do that and actually pushing myself in that direction to make myself do it, I think that's got a lot to do with what I'm doing, is just the whole, like, make yourself do the work. And that's, oh God, what was his name? Stephen Pressman said, you know, do the work. You have to do the work. And that's the same thing that Ira Glass said when he was talking about the gap. He was saying that, he's like, I've talked before about the idea that art fundamentally is taking the thing that's in your head and sending it out through your hands into the world. And there's a point in your life where, and there's a point in most of our lives, most of us are in a position where the stuff in our head is something that we struggle to get into the world. What's in our head is so much better than what we can do with our hands. Our hands are clumsy and limited, and we don't have the right tools, and we don't have the right skills, and we don't have the right level of agility and dexterity and understanding, and we draw something on paper, and it's just like, well, that doesn't look anything like what I wanted. And most of us are kind of struggling through that thing where we are trying to get our hands to catch up with what our brains can do, you know? And getting your hands to catch up with what your brain can do is where most of us are. But I was thinking about it, and I was realizing that, you know, when I was a kid, I knew a couple of people, and my dad has known a couple of people in his youth. People that were just absolutely amazing at drawing things they had already seen. So he went to school with a guy who used to work in India Ink, and he did these fantastic, detailed, photorealistic pictures of things he had seen before. But if he hadn't seen it, he couldn't do it. He couldn't make something up and draw it. He had to have seen it, and it had to have struck him and impressed upon him, you know, I should remember this. This is a thing that matters to me and that I will think about later. And then he could go back and he could draw it. He could draw it perfectly every single time. But he was always stuck with, you know, what he had seen before. And that's kind of the opposite situation. You know, I knew a guy when I was in grade school, and he could draw these amazing, fantastic reproductions of movie posters. Just movie posters. If he had seen a movie poster, he could draw the image on the movie poster perfectly. He could do like John Carpenter's Halloween, which was like the skull carved into a pumpkin. He did a fantastic job on that. He could do the colors and everything. He could use pastels, colored pencils, watercolor, whatever. He could sit down and he could paint or draw or sketch any movie poster that he had ever seen that he thought was cool. But he could never think of what to draw. And there was a guy I knew in high school, and he could draw cool things that he had seen on television. Couldn't draw anything that he just made up. I knew a bunch of people who drew from comic books, and they could draw the exact pose that they loved from a particular part of a comic book. They couldn't draw any other pose. They couldn't draw any other character. They could draw Batman, but they couldn't draw Moon Knight. How fucking hard is that? I mean, the difference between Batman and Moon Knight is like the cape and the hood. That's it. That's the only difference. But for some reason, they couldn't do that. And I have been thinking about that over the course of the past week, and it occurred to me that they have the exact opposite situation. Their hands can do the work, but their brains can't come up with the idea. I've never been on that side of things. I've never been on the side of things where my hands were more talented than my brain. But when I think about it, I think that what I've known, these people that I've met, they have that exact situation. Their hands are talented, but their brain isn't. And they need to get, like, one half of it needs to catch up to the other. It might be your hands that need work. It might be your brain that needs work. But one side is ahead of the other, and you got to get the other one to catch up. And if you can get the other one to catch up, then you'll be able to take whatever it is you're thinking of. You can put it in there. Right, they don't derive the principles from their replications. They just, I typically divide learning to draw into 3 sections. First of all, you need to learn what lines have to be drawn. It's like we all know what goes into a face, right? There's an eye. I've got there's an eye, and there's another eye, and there's a nose. And typically you want to put the nose between the eyes. But knowing what lines to draw is one thing. Knowing where to draw them is another thing entirely. And that'll give you a better result if you understand where those lines need to be drawn. If you understand how they fit together and what goes into making that actually look like a face. But on top of that, you have the question of why do they need to be drawn there? Why does that eye hide behind the nose? That eye hides behind the nose because it's farther back. There should also be kind of an angle to the eyes. There's a perspective to the face, to the top of the head. Okay, you're always drawing in perspective, whether you realize it or not. And it's just that sometimes if you don't draw in perspective, you can get away with it because whoever's looking at your art doesn't know what the fuck they're looking at anyway. A lot of us are in that place. Hey, look at what I drew. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's because you don't know shit. That's where an awful lot of us are in terms of our art. That's why talent is so. That's why talent is so dangerous, because if people go, oh, you are so talented, oh, you are so talented, oh, you are so talented, you might not realize that you still need to practice. I mean, in my experience, talent is 6 months. Okay, if you've got talent at something, then you have about 6 months before somebody working hard to learn catches up to you. That's it. That's all you've got. And if you just rest on that talent, then everybody's going to catch up to you and you're not going to know how to move forward. That was the situation I ran into when I went to college. The whole time I was going through high school. Somebody said once, they said the problem with being a gifted child is that you spend all your life being told how impressive it is that you read at a college level. And then you go to college and suddenly everybody is reading at a college level. Yeah, that's kind of how it works. You go through school and everybody's telling you how smart you are and how good you are at everything. And then eventually you get to a point where everybody else has gotten that good too. And now you need to know how to get better. And I had no idea how to get better. I got to college. I had no idea how to study. I had no idea how to learn. Everything that I'd done all the way through school was just parroting stuff that I had already learned, you know, and that was really, really difficult for me. And it's one of those things where now I look back on that and I go, well, what was anybody supposed to do? It's not like I would have listened to them. You know, and I run into that with my son. My eldest son is exactly like me. He thinks he knows everything because he has, in fact, known everything that he needed to know his entire life. And now he's going out and trying to get jobs, and he's learning that nobody will hire the guy who just knows everything. It's not going to help him. And they're especially not going to hire the guy who goes into the job interview and they say, I need you to do this. He's like, well, that's stupid. He's learning some hard social lessons. And you can't teach them. He has to learn them, you know, and it's difficult. And I look at that and I go, I had the same problem. I had absolutely the same problem. And I had absolutely the same struggle. And I know good and goddamn well nobody could have told me shit. So nobody's going to be able to tell him shit either. So I'm just like, you know, if you got questions, I'm here, you know, but this is something you got to figure it out for yourself. If you think you're close and you want to nudge, let me know, but I'm not going to lecture you about this shit. Because that's not going to help. It doesn't help to just like argue and argue and argue with people. It really doesn't. And especially not when they're your kids. But, yeah, there is definite waistline needs to come in more. Still not good. I'm still not happy with that. That is one of my favorite little things about Clip Studio Paint, by the way. I have the two buttons on my pen. They're mapped. The one up here on the top is sample color. So like if I've got a big old swatch of color on the screen, like over here, and then I go and I paint in some other color elsewhere on the screen, and I go, oh wait, I need that color, I can grab it back. Just that easy, and then I can get the one I was working with before in. And then on top of that, I have there's a transparent color, there's a clear color on Clip Studio Paint that I have mapped to the other button, which is essentially the eraser. So I can be painting and then I could go, oh wait, and I could switch over to the clear color. And I could carve away at it. And this is tremendously useful whenever I'm doing any kind of like painting sort of thing. Whenever I'm doing some kind of painting and I go, okay, I want this shape right here, and then I go, oh wait, that is a bit too far. I can carve it away and clean it up. That is tremendously useful. I love that. I am sure that like literally every paint program out there has stuff like this, but I really like the way Clip Studio Paint has done it. I resisted getting Clip Studio Paint for a long time. If you actually look at my desktop icons, you'll see that I have Krita, which is another free paint program. I have not used, I know that Zeb uses GIMP, and I know that a lot of other people who watch this video probably use GIMP. I fucking hate GIMP. I can't stand it. And it's primarily because GIMP developed entirely independently. The people who built GIMP built it by saying, let's start all the way from the beginning and go, we're going to build an image manipulation program. And they started from the concept of, we're going to make something as good as Photoshop, but they didn't start from the baseline of, let's do what Photoshop is doing. They started from a baseline of, fuck Adobe, fuck Photoshop, fuck literally everybody that has ever made any application to do this. We're going to do it our way. And they did it their way. I don't like their way because I've been using all of this other shit that everybody else makes. I used to use Photoshop, I used to use PaintShop Pro, I used to use Illustrator, I used Corel Draw, I used Corel Paint, I used Fractal Design Painter, and there are conventions, there are ways that these programs work, and GIMP doesn't do any of them. It's completely outside of that. And that can be a good thing. That can be a very good thing. It can be something that that is good for you and that you enjoy, but for me, oh my God, I fucking hate it. I really fucking hate it. It's awful. But, you know, the whole thing for me is that I used all of these different options and all of these different things. And the one that really clicked with me was PaintShop Pro. And then PaintShop Pro decided we need to compete more directly with Photoshop. And they tried to become more like Photoshop. And in order to become more like Photoshop, they threw away a whole lot of tools that I liked a whole lot. Like they had a brush called the push brush. It was just fantastic because like what you would do is you would go, okay, we're going to start in red and we're going to go, here's some red, and then we'll come over here and we'll go, here's some yellow, and we're going to put some yellow on the outside here. And then you could take the push brush. And with the push brush, which I guess is kind of like the blending brush, maybe the blending brush sort of does that kind of thing. What's the blending brush? Subtool eraser? No, that's... There's the blending thingy. I know there's a thingy. There's a blending thingy. There it is right there. There's a blending brush. Okay, but... It was like you could push the colors. Yeah, this doesn't push enough. But you could take the entire thing and you could just like automatically blend it. This is dragging the paper color in. Oh my God, this is awful. This is horrible. This is not at all. I miss my push brush. Nothing works like the push brush used to in PaintShop Pro. I don't know. I feel there's so many options. Oh my God, when you look at all of the options in brushes in Clip Studio Paint, I feel like I could make the push brush, maybe. I think It's something that I might be able to do, but holy crap, there's so many options, there's so much stuff, and it's so confusing. And I don't know, it's I don't know where I would even get started doing that. But I'm just I'm rambling at this point. Just because basically all I'm trying to say is I really like Clip Studio Paint. It's a really great program. Of course, it is like a $70 program, and it's like $200 if you want to get like the full-blown the experts version. One of these days I'll upgrade to that, but that's mostly for people who are trying to design an entire comic book, who are trying to publish out of Clip Studio Paint, or who are trying to do animations, and I'm not trying to do that. That's not the kind of thing that I want to do, so I'm probably not going to do that for a good while. Man, I spent 45 minutes on spent 45 minutes on just one sketch. I think I'm just trying to work too fast. I think that's a huge element of this. I am trying to work too fast, and that is preventing me from doing the level and quality of work that I want to do. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud at this point. This is probably an incredibly boring stream now. But yeah, it's... time is it? Oh, holy crap. I have been on for over an hour. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and jump off of here. Thank you all for showing up. If you're watching this live, I appreciate the hell out of you. And if you're watching it on a replay, I appreciate the hell out of you too. Come and see one of the live ones at 11 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday, which is a weird time, I guess. And on top of that, you could be watching this years from now, and I might not be doing these anymore. Wow, this is the worst sales pitch ever. I suck at sales pitches. I can't promote my own shit for crap. Just like I can't end a stream for crap, So yeah, that's thanks for showing up.